Today's video is going to be a ton of fun, guys, but hear me out and hear what I have to say. Let me know what you think about today's discussion at the end of the video in the comment section. This particular topic, I am very curious to hear what you guys, the fans of Marvel, have to say about Gorr the God Butcher. Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to Cosmic Culture, the channel where we talk all things major movie and television news, theories, breakdowns, and much, much more. I, of course, am your host, Chris, and today we're going to be discussing Gorr the God Butcher from the new and upcoming movie Thor Love and Thunder. Now, recently, Monday night, we received the first trailer that revealed Gorr the God Butcher, his different looks, his appearance, his tone, and pretty much how he's going to come off in the Thor movie. While there are many characters in the entirety of the canon that is the Marvel Comics storyline, Gorr the God Butcher is probably somewhere in the mid-range as to whether or not anybody actually knows who he is based off of reading the comics and being aware of the character. He's not a super commonly well-known villain like Doctor Doom or Thanos, but he's also not a nobody. He's a very powerful individual who was given an awesome opportunity with the all-black Necrosword in the comics, and we see a sword, which may or may not be the all-black Necrosword, also in the trailer. So, here's a character that has a decent following as far as people who know who he is, and has a new look coming into the live-action MCU. Well, today I want to talk about Marvel's problem with this character, and it's not the way he looks, but it's the way he's being treated by the fans. And this is an upcoming issue. This is something that I think Marvel is going to struggle with moving forward as they've gained popularity in the cinemas, which at this point we're well past popularity, but Marvel movies are all hits. They are all box office victories. This is a franchise that only takes dubs. So follow with me along through this video while I go on a little bit of a rant about the issue with the way the Marvel fan base has been acting recently. If you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel and turning on that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of our daily updates. We do talk all things major movie and television news, although recently with the release of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, Thor Love and Thunder trailer, and many other projects, we do cover very closely Marvel news as well. You can also check me out on my other socials, Twitter at TheCultureChris and Instagram at ChrisMRosser. Links to both of these are in the description. So of course, before I start diving into my opinion, I have to give you guys the obvious release of liability waiver stating that yes, you all have an opinion. You are all entitled to your opinion. There is zero wrong with voicing your opinion as long as you're being respectful to the community and to others, and that's cool. That's great. My opinion is Gorr the God Butcher looks fantastic. My opinion is yes, he doesn't look exactly like he did in the comics just yet, but that's okay. And this isn't an opinion, but this is a fact that most people are okay with how Gorr the God Butcher looks. In fact, most people think he looks really cool. Why is it then, however, when you go on Twitter or you go on Instagram or you go on TikTok, all you see are people talking very poorly about the way Gorr looks, how terrible it is, and you get these all caps comments, Gorr the God Butcher looks so bad, Marvel's falling off. Well, I think that this is the voice of the minority, and let me preface this with a little bit of fact as well. During the release of the trailer Monday night, I was live as a channel. We had over 70,000 people who rolled throughout the entire thing. Usually we sat about 2,000 viewers. Right after the trailer came out, my channel was sitting at 2,500 live viewers, and I quickly asked, do you guys like or not like the way Gorr looks? Now, I set this as a poll because on live streams on YouTube you can do that. I had over 1,500 responses to this poll in the time frame of 3 minutes, and 83% of people said yes, they like the way Gorr the God Butcher looks. Now, if I had asked anybody randomly, hi, what do you think the percentage is of people who like or don't like Gorr, most people would probably tell you about 50-50 yes, no, or maybe even 60-40 people don't like him versus people who do. The voice of the minority outweighs the voice of the minority. The way that social media is set up, engagement gets you views on TikTok, on Twitter, on Instagram. The more people comment, the more people share and send things, or things are engaged with, the more these things are viewed. So people who say, hey, Gorr doesn't look good, well, the comment sections on a lot of these are, you're being too picky, I think he looks good. A few people agreeing or bandwagoning with that specific decision. However, That's the reason we keep seeing all of these negative comments. I think the Marvel fan base has this group of people who like to dictate what should and should be good, or what is and isn't good. And this group of hypercritical individuals are ruining the fun for a lot of people. They're bestowing this negative energy about what Marvel has to do and what they need to do in order to have a successful film, and how they're falling off and their CGI isn't good in a trailer, so the entire company is crumbling to bits. I just don't think that that's the case. And my poll that had 83% of people immediately saying, yes, I love the way Gorr looks, that was an instinct. That wasn't a, oh, well, I heard a couple people said it wasn't good, so I don't like it. It was immediately after the first look of Gorr. 83% of 1,500 people said, yes, I like the way he looks. So why is there a debate about whether or not he looks good? 83% is a big number. And yeah, there are comic book fans out there who want to see a comic book accurate Gorr the God Butcher. People who grew up reading the comics, or people who have this deeper knowledge of who the character is and expectation. But as I mentioned, Gorr isn't like the world's most common villain that everybody knows. Most people actually probably haven't read a Gorr comic, or haven't had this interaction with him growing up, where if you go and you change the colors of Spider-Man to something completely different, let's make him orange and purple because why not, that would be kind of crazy. That wouldn't be a good change, because the majority of us have grown up either watching television shows of Spider-Man, or drawing coloring books with Spider-Man in it, reading the comics, playing with the toys. How many of you honestly had a Gorr the God Butcher toy? A Gorr the God Butcher action figure? Out of everybody that might watch this movie, maybe one, but I'm willing to bet probably no one. That's not something you had, that's not something you played with or grew up with. This is the issue, because somewhere in a comic book 30 years ago, somebody drew Gorr the God Butcher a certain way. Now he's not good. Now he's not good enough, because I haven't read the comics, but that's what he looked like when he was in the comics. Not to even mention the fact that it's very likely that as the movie goes through, he's going to end up becoming more comic book accurate. It seems like he's being possessed or corrupt by the sword and by the powers it has, and as we see, he is covered in more scars, his fingers start turning to black, and he starts losing the humanoid feature that he has originally. And we see in one image where he looks completely fine with no scars, and another one where he literally has goo falling out of his mouth, he's covered in scars, his fingers are black. He's going to go through a transformation, and maybe by the end of the movie, assuming he survives this film, he will have a more comic book accurate look. Another thing to add on top of the comic book accurate argument is everybody wants to see comic book accurate. That's not what he looked like in the comics has been a huge topic of discussion, a big huge comment left in comment sections across all social media, including on Marvel specifically. But then when it happens, they call him cheesy. Phase 4 has been the era of comic book accurate outfits. We have seen so many characters revamped with new colors, something a little bit more classic, like Falcon, Thor briefly in the Thor Love and Thunder trailer, Spider-Man at the end of Spider-Man No Way Home, Hawkeye, and many others throughout the entirety of this phase have been given comic book accurate looks. And people start saying things like, well, it looks a little cheesy, it needs to be calmed down, the colors are very bright. Guys, the comic book suits were cheesy. They were very cheesy. So to try to bring those to life in the modern era, it's going to look cheesy. That's what you wanted when you said, I want the comic book accurate suits. Now that's fine, but damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's either not comic book accurate enough, or it's too cheesy. We need to be happy. We need to enjoy the movies and what we're given. No, if there's a bad plot, if there's a bad story, if there's bad acting, then sure, we can talk about that. But just because you don't like the way Gorr looks, doesn't mean the entire internet has to follow that opinion, or we have to have a big debate about whether or not Marvel Studios is falling off because I don't like the way Gorr looks. I think it's a little ridiculous. I think it was something that needed to have a video made about it, because it's not just Gorr, but it is all over Marvel Studios recently, where there are opinions which are completely fine, valid, you are entitled to your opinion, but these opinions affect the mindset of fans who maybe didn't have that opinion before because they saw a tweet that has 10,000 likes or retweets, or they saw TikTok that had 1 million views that somebody said Gorr doesn't look good, so that must be true. The internet is a place for many impressionable minds, but you have to form your own opinion. So, answer my question. Do you like Gorr? Did you think when you saw him in the trailer for the very first time, that's a cool villain? Or am I completely wrong, which is very likely as well? I will admit that. but I think Gorr looks great, and I know many others agree with me as well. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. This isn't an attack video on anybody. This is simply me voicing my opinion against all of those people who are hating on Gorr. Thank you guys so much for watching to the very end of the video. If you found it helpful, useful, or entertaining, consider subscribing and turning on that notification bell, and I'll be sure to catch all of you guys on the next one right here on Cosmic Culture.